Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Rewind That. It's your girl, Miss K. If this is your first time coming across my channel, welcome. Please be sure to subscribe if you like the vibe and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. All right, guys, before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much to my new subscribers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you guys continue to stay for the ride and enjoy the content. Also, shout out to my OGs. I love you all. All right. So today we're going to be going over the latest episode of Godfather of Harlem, season 2, episode 9, called The Bonanno Split. All right, guys, let's get into it. So the episode starts off with Bumpy, right? And he's sitting at a table and he's obviously drinking too much because Chance is respectfully telling him to chill. Okay. So we can see that killing the 10 Harlems is weighing hard on Bumpy, right? He's killed plenty of men before, right? But this just hit different. And now it has Bumpy questioning if he could ever trust anybody he works with again. Next, Ernie is back, and after robbing a truck with a bunch of minks, he tells Chin that he got one for his wife and one for Stella too. And Chin tells Ernie that he doesn't want him seeing Stella because if so, there's going to be a problem. And we already know, right, that Chin doesn't have a problem with killing anybody that gets close to his daughter. And if you ask me, that's kind of weird, like stop acting like you want to have sexual relations with your daughter. You can't stand for anybody to touch her, this and that. Like it's a little weird for me, all right? Next, Bumpy goes to meet up with Monsieur 98 to get the shipment instructions. But out comes Bonanno and a few of his men to tell Bumpy that Monsieur 98 doesn't like the way Bumpy does business. Therefore, he's going to take over. So, of course, Bumpy is confused and blindsided, and he asks Monsieur 98 what the heck is going on, and Monsieur 98 says, I couldn't trust you anymore. And the messed up part about this whole thing, guys, is that Bonanno is basically hijacking the shipment, okay, because Bumpy already paid for it. So this obviously makes Monsieur 98 kind of a hypocrite, right, by telling Bumpy that he doesn't trust him, because at least Bumpy paid the full price for the shipment, right? So it was pretty grimy for Monsieur 98 to just hand the shipment over to Bonanno. So before we move on, guys, I honestly didn't think that Monsieur 98 was going to turn on Bumpy. I really thought that Bumpy sent 98 to tell Bonanno and Chin that he didn't want to work with Bumpy anymore as some sort of plan, right? Because normally Bumpy is always about 10 steps ahead of everyone, right? But I was wrong, and Monsieur 98 really made this move. Next, Elise and Captain Omar are eating together and laughing and just enjoying each other's company. But then we have Brother Henry and Sister Marnie just over there hating, okay? Like, find something else to do. They over there watching them laugh and giggle and have a good time. And they just standing there with their miserable selves hating. Like, it's disgusting, okay? And it's baffling to me because I just don't understand the hate. So anyway, they both make their comments about Elise, calling her a temptress. Then Brother Henry tells Marnie that he has someone keeping a close eye on Elise. And I was just like, oh gosh, here we go. They're going to find out about her visits with Malcolm. Next, the brothers from the fraternity come to Bumpy and they let him know that they need him to pay his debt, which is well over a few $1,000,000. And this was money used to pay for the shipment, okay, guys, which Bumpy now doesn't have. So now he can't pay these guys. So Brother Archie reminds Bumpy of the collateral he put up in case he couldn't pay the debt, which turns out to be his home in Club Geechee. So things are definitely not looking good for Bumpy. Plus, we see that he is still drinking, right, guys? And now that he may lose his house and the club, their drinking will get worse. Next, Captain Omar tells Elise that she has given him a joy that he hasn't felt since his wife died, and he doesn't ever want her to leave his side, okay? So he asks Elise if she would marry him, and we're going to stick a pin in that and move on, okay? Next, Bumpy and Malcolm have their usual sit down, and Bumpy tells Malcolm that a deal gone wrong is really bothering him to the point where he can't eat or sleep, and now he's drinking after not having a drink for decades. So Malcolm tells Bumpy that he doesn't need to know the specifics, but business deals go bad all the time, and that he'll pick himself up like he always does. So Bumpy tells Malcolm that he never thought about getting out before, but now it's on his mind all the time. So when Malcolm says this could be a good thing, Bumpy says, yeah, but I got people to support. And that's when Malcolm says, we've talked about the contradiction of your character on many occasions before. And Bumpy was just like, please don't lecture me, all right? He just wanted Malcolm to listen at this point. And once he said that, all Malcolm could do was respect it, and instead of lecturing Bumpy, he lets Bumpy know that he's made his mistakes too. Then he says to Bumpy, "Pardon the pun, but maybe both our chickens have come home to roost." And before we move on, guys, I just want to say that I love this friendship between Malcolm and Bumpy, and I'm not looking forward to Malcolm's assassination, okay? Because I really enjoy this character. And the actor playing him definitely deserves an Emmy, by the way. Next, Elise tells Mamie about Captain Omar'S proposal and that she told him she would think about it. So Mamie asks Elise if she loves Captain Omar, and Elise tells Mamie that the only man she's ever loved is Malcolm. She asks Mamie not to tell anyone this secret, but she also let Mamie know that she loves Betty as well, and Malcolm could only be a friend. Then she tells Mamie that she's lonely and doesn't want to end up alone. But now she's found a man that she knows could give her a happy life. So Mamie tells Elise that she should talk to Malcolm and Betty about it because they would know what to do. But later that night, Mamie tells Bumpy about Elise's proposal, and Bumpy did not receive it well, okay? He tells Mamie that the last thing he wants is a Muslim son-in-law. Plus, it didn't help that Bumpy was drunk too, Next, Elise tells Malcolm and Betty about the proposal, and Malcolm tells Elise that Captain Omar is a good man, and if she has feelings for him, then she should act on it. But then Betty tells Elise that if Captain Omar doesn't know about the friendship that she's been keeping with Malcolm and Betty, the marriage would be doomed, because a marriage with secrets is destined to fail. So Elise decides that she's going to tell Captain Omar the truth. And at this point, guys, I was just hoping that she got to Captain Omar before anybody else did, okay? Next, Nat tells Bumpy that they found Monsieur 98. So when Bumpy gets to the location, Monsieur 98 is already telling Bumpy that he's sorry and he did what he thought he must do. So to Chance and Nat's surprise, Bumpy cuts the ropes off of Monsieur 98 and he tells him that he's not going to hurt him and that he just wants to talk. So when Bumpy asks Monsieur 98 why he went over to Bonanno, Monsieur tells him that it was because Bumpy killed men who were his partners and friends. So now I completely understand why Monsieur 98 did what he did, because looking at things through his eyes, Bumpy had to look untrustworthy, right? Because if we think about it, Monsieur 98 didn't know that Bumpy was betrayed by the 10 Harlems. He was just there to witness the cleanup, So I was glad that Bumpy decided to talk to Monsieur 98 and get an answer instead of just killing him for what he did, because what he did is something to be killed for. This man paid millions of dollars for this shipment, and for him to hand it over to somebody else in that game, that's definitely something to die for, okay? So Bumpy tells Monsieur 98 that he didn't like killing the Harlems, but he couldn't trust them. Then he gives 98 a choice. You could work with me or you could stay working with the Italians. Bumpy also adds that if 98 leaves, he won't harm him, but he's offering 98 a partnership based on trust and respect. Does Bonanno respect you? So Monsieur 98 makes the choice to leave, but comes back a few moments later and tells Bumpy that he will take his side. He says, "I trust you, and this is what I know." So during the car ride, Chance, who was against Bumpy letting 98 just walk out like that, turns to Bumpy and says, "You knew it all along, didn't you? You knew he'd come back." So when Bumpy doesn't answer, Nat adds that Bumpy is a chess player, always thinking moves ahead. But Bumpy tells them that this time he had no moves and he had no idea what 98 was going to do. Then he says, sometimes it's best to just be honest. And Chance just gave Bumpy a look that said, I can respect that. Next, Bumpy is back to playing chess and he calls Chin. And Chin was like, "You got some nerve calling me." So Bumpy says, "I hear Bonanno plans on stealing the French connection from you." And Chin was like, "Go screw yourself. I'm tired of your tricks, right?" So Bumpy tells Chin that it's not a trick. Just know that I may come to you with a deal at some point, and if I were you, I'd take it. So Chin says, "Why can't you just face the fact that you lost the connection?" Then Bumpy says, "Keep this in mind. A stronger Bonanno ain't something that either one of us can afford." Then he hangs up the phone. Next, Father Louis goes to Morgenthau and tries to tell him that the recording he has of Stella confessing a crime to him was just a game that him and Stella had been playing since she was a kid. So by now, we already know that Morgenthau had Stella picked up and told her about the tape in hopes that he would get her to testify, right? But her and Ernie come up with a plan for Father Louis to just go and talk to Morgenthau and pretty much deny the recording. So, of course, Morgenthau is not buying this story that Father is giving, right? So, Father Louis just has to basically come out and tell him that he is not going to cooperate, okay? That's the bottom line. And that's when Morgenthau tells Louis that because the confession didn't happen in a confessional booth, it's not considered privileged information under the law. So, obviously, a public payphone doesn't count. So then Father Louis goes to tell Ernie and Stella that the plan did not work. On top of that, he tells Stella that she should testify against her father because she's young and she shouldn't throw her life away. So then Ernie tells Father Louis that Stella wasn't the one who killed Benny, okay? She only wounded him. But I was the one who put a bullet between his eyes. So, of course, Father Louis is not happy to hear this, right? He's like, what the heck have you guys gotten me into? But just that fast, he comes up with a better plan. And because of his plan, Ernie and Stella go to Morgenthau and they make a confession. On top of that, they let him know that they're still not going to testify against Chen and that he could prosecute them both. So Morgenthau says, fine, have it your way. I'll charge you both. Then he says, we'll see how quick you are to confess once you're up on that stand. So Stella says, we're looking forward to our day in court. Then, in the very next scene, we see Father Louis marrying Stella and Ernie because two married people can't testify against each other. So I guess we could say, way to go to Uncle Louis's plan, right? But how will Chen react to this is the real question. Next, Elise goes to tell Captain Omar the truth about her friendship with Malcolm, but by the look on his face, Marnie and Henry already got to him. So Captain Omar doesn't want to hear anything Elise has to say, and he just wants to know if she was at Malcolm's house the other night, and Elise did not deny it. So now Omar is just looking at Elise like she's a liar, and he goes off on her, guys. And he tells her that she's a worthless piece of garbage. Then he tells her to leave this office and this mosque. And I was like, sheesh, why the heck did he have to talk to her like that, right? But anyway, Elise leaves, but before she goes, she tells him that he doesn't have a heart and his soul is weak, and that she knows her worth and that he doesn't deserve a woman like her. So as she's leaving, Captain Omar tells her that she and Malcolm will both pay. But, even though I don't like how he dealt with this situation and how he spoke to her, I still hope that he changes his mind and asks Elise for forgiveness and continues to pursue her, because I felt like he was a good guy. I know he was hurt, but his reaction was not called for. So that just means to me that maybe he needs to get his anger in check, deal with it in a different way. But I still hope that there's hope for them. All right, next, Bumpy and Costello meet up to play chess, and Bumpy tells Costello that 98 let him know that Bonanno plans to wholesale the dope without the other families. He tells Costello that nobody that goes to that meeting is going to come out alive. So because he loves Frank as a friend, he tells him to please call in sick that day because the 5 families are supposed to be meeting up at Coney Island, right, to split the dope, but it's a setup by Bonanno. Next, Bonanno sits with 98 as they wait for the other families, and after Bonanno let 98 know that he's not splitting the dope with the other families and that his plan is to kill them, 98 takes out his gun and kills 2 of Bonanno's guys that are standing very close by, right? And out comes Bumpy to tell Bonanno that the Frenchman has decided to play with me instead. So it's kind of like a reenactment, right, of what we saw Bonanno do to Bumpy in the beginning of this episode. But now it's Bumpy on the other side coming out and telling Bonanno what's going on. All right, so things have definitely changed. All right, so the rest of the families show up, but they don't know that Bonanno has snipers posted up on the Cyclone roller coaster. Then Bumpy comes up behind Joe and puts a gun to his head. He also tells the families that Bonanno has snipers, then tells Joe to call them off. So after Joe calls off the snipers, Bumpy lets the families know all about Joe's plan and that none of them were going to leave there alive. So Chen says, I want to hear it from Joe. Is this true? And Joe says, you killed my son. So Bumpy then says to Chen, remember I told you I was going to make you a deal? Well, Joe here is going to retire and leave town for good, and I'll give you a nice piece of the dope out of Marseille for a down payment. So Chen was reluctant at first, but once he finds out that the connection is lost, he takes the deal, which is that he will take East Harlem, but Harlem is Bumpy's. Then Bumpy tells Joe that he's no longer welcome in New York. But leaving a man like Joe Bonanno alive might have grave consequences. So we shall see, right? Next, Bumpy goes to the Geechee where he meets up with the fraternity brothers and he gives them a check for what he owes, right? Paid in full, plus a commission of 6% to launder the money. So the judge tells Bumpy that they agreed on 12%, but Bumpy says no, the agreement was 6%, which you jacked up due to the Morgenthau investigation, which is my concern, not yours, so 6% it is. Then the judge says, Brother Johnson, I will not be talked to in this manner. So Bumpy takes a step closer to the judge. So he's pretty much in his face now, right, guys? And he says, so what you gonna do about it? And the judge definitely folded after that and was like, well, I think the brothers would agree that 6% is acceptable. And I just loved how Brother Archie was over there laughing, okay? Because he didn't really want to take Bumpy's club or home away. You know, he was just doing what he had to do as a businessman, you know, and someone with an elite reputation, right? And I think him and Bumpy had some sort of friendship already. So when Bumpy took back the reins, I think Archie found it to be pretty amusing. All right, guys. Well, that was how the episode ended. I believe next week is the season finale. That quick, right? They only came back to give us 4 freaking episodes. But it is what it is, and I cannot wait to see what happens. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode, okay? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. Until next time, you guys take care and be blessed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.